Good day. Lecture number 18. The Match Profile. There is 6 million years ago, our ancestor was a primate. Already, he benefited of intuition and instinct powers. He lived in a forest, close to a water plant. During the day, mainly herbivorous, he fed on vegetable nourishment as herbs, leaves, and fruits at the ground level or in the trees. As his food was poor nutrient, then he had to eat all day long, except for few relax and rest moments. At night, in protection against predators, always roaming around, he built a bed on the branch of a tree where he spent the night. Attacked by a predator or a congener, which looked for stealing food or a clan's member, he struggled rigorously to save his skin and his offspring. Incited by nature to intervene for the species' survival, with power, force, and steadiness, he fought strongly to accomplish his parenthood. Then a day, our ancestor lived a special event that pushed up his evolution. That was a climatic catastrophe, a dryness that lasts for long with forest fires. Food and logging became rare. The situation turned out in panic among the primates, each one willing to keep for himself what was considered to be his own. That uncertainty degenerated in rebellions and fights. Following that painful experience, one of the primate species, predestined, could we say, weaker than the gorilla, less agile than the gibbon, less crafty than the monkey, was put out to sharing of table and forest refuge. That species, then known as outcasts and ostracized, will one day be our ancestor. Wounded in his ego and flesh, to survive he became nomad, roaming in a new and hostile world, surrounded by unknown dangers. Assisted by his intuition and instinct, his survival needs permitted to improve latent skills, observation, memory, and imagination. Generation passed, and assisted with his intuition, instinct, observation, memory, and imagination, at the eve of civilization, the new generation elaborated new skills to think, to compare, to deduct, to form opinions, and take decisions. Invested with all these strong powers, the primate undertook a new life in order to become a primate, meaning a primate and a human candidate. Living as primate for hundreds of millions of years, these new skills served mainly his privacy, his primate life with his material life. Bringing his material life at his best, sometimes he thought to another unknown notion, his immaterial life. To initiate the primate to this immaterial life, nature created religion. In guiding man to liberty, religion inculcated man with life principles, which often were contrary to his primate life based on his instinct. In spite of millennium years, these life principles remain vain, for a long time, not by ignorance, but by misunderstanding. Still, in this second millennium, the instant influence remains strong and active. Researchers show that primate and future human live with a 90-10 ratio, meaning that nowadays the future human lives more than 90% as primate and less than 10% as human. Let's explain it. The essence of life is activity, and nature is the active forces. Nature creates vital needs to assure man's survival. So, in order to support man to fulfill his vital needs, nature favored each vital need with an irresistible and unavoidable means, a pleasure. So there's a pleasure to eat, a pleasure for protection, and a pleasure to procreate. For nature, this pleasure is an absolute mean, an excitement, an impulsion to answer to the vital needs. This mean is never a finality, never a goal, uniquely and exclusively a mean. Nevertheless, with the intelligent powers and consciousness of freedom conferred by nature, man competes with nature and transforms this mean, the pleasure, into a goal. Let's see that. The need of eating. Thus, to satisfy his passion of eating, once fed up, man created a false need, a false appetite, to be able to continue to enjoy eating. Even when not hungry, he still creates a false appetite to appease his gluttony. Sometimes that phobia excitement to create harmful need for unhealthy food, drugs, tobacco, and so forth. At other times, this exclusive search for pleasure will deprive man of necessary food. For example, he may refuse to eat vegetable, trying to justify it by saying, "I don't like that." Nevertheless, and for the same reason, he will gulp down dangerous and harmful substances to please what he calls his pleasure. The need of protection. Man is a primate and a candidate for humanhood. As primate, he always possesses an animal instinct. Animal has possessive and domineering characters. So, man has possessive and domineering characters too. If someone say or do something that he couldn't say nor do himself, erroneously he feels inferior, attacked in his domineering ego. Then he creates a false aggression to justify an obligation to fight back. If someone possesses a good that he hasn't and that he covets, he feels stolen, bullied. Then he creates a false aggression in order to recuperate what doesn't belong to him. If anybody demonstrates to be too different according to his personal criterions, he feels injured. Again, he creates a false aggression, producing a conflict and the obligation to define him, looking for the other to change mind and thoughts to his, because he and only he have truth. Wars and conflicts, aren't they too often false aggression, influenced by the animal, possessive and domineering characters, reviving in each primate man his thirst, his phobia, his pleasure to possess and to dominate? No doubt, that the pleasure as goal doesn't exist in nature. It is expressly a future human creation. Conclusion: God of the past is now life in present. Life created religion to teach man life principle and guided him on the road of freedom and happiness. Man with excellent his intelligent powers and the privilege of freedom competes with nature by creating a religion inspired by the animal instinct powers and thus constituting an unfavorable handicap for freedom and happiness. Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, "Man is born free, but everywhere he is in iron." Jean-Paul Sartre said, "To be free is to look for what we could." Modern men said, "No, to be free is to have powers over all desires." Men couldn't accede to happiness without liberty, and men won't open up the freedom's doors but when you will have found the key of thinking. Thank you, Armin. Remember that all lectures are available by paper or email. Thank you.